Hey everyone, welcome to the Psychedelic Integration Podcast. I'm Sinclair.
And I'm John.
And we're with Mystical Heart Collective. And we help people heal with psychedelics with all of our magical tools, including integration,
preparation,
navigation, and retreats. We are so excited to share that we just opened booking for our first retreat this week. And it's
in Olon, Ecuador, from June 28th through July 8th. It's 11 days. We have 6 to 7 ceremonies, 2 ayahuasca, 2 San Pedros, 2 sweat lodges. We would love to have you. If you're interested in hearing more details, tune into the end of the podcast and you can find out a little bit more about what we got going on.
And you can visit the website at mysticalheartcollective.com/retreats. So today we're talking about a really cool topic. We are going to explore minimum effective dose. What is minimum effective dose, John?
So minimum effective dose, we're talking about the least amount of something that you need to get the results you're seeking. And really this is to get the return on investment that you're hoping to get. Not taking too little, not taking too much.
Yeah, so in the context of medicine, this would be taking the smallest amount or dose of the medicine, like John said, to get the desired outcome or to have the experience that you want. And there's a spectrum of methods of working with psychedelics and advice around how to work with psychedelics, and we're going to talk about the whole spectrum. So on one end you have microdosing, which is taking a very small amount of a psychedelic.
Not even noticeable, just enough that there's something in your system, but it shouldn't change the way you perceive anything.
And that often, we'll talk a little bit about how that works, but it's something that you do sort of repeat like every day, daily for a while.
Every 3 days.
Or on a schedule. And then you have that on one end, and then on the other end we have the heroic dose, or the ego death dose, or the blaster gun, as I like to call it. And so that's another area that sort of gets a lot of attention and a lot of people talk about. And then we have everything in between that. And so today on the podcast, we're going to talk about what is minimum effective dose? Why is it important? Why do you need to care about this? And we'll explore kind of the pros and cons of these more extreme sides of the spectrum. And we'll talk about what we like to call the middle way and what that looks like as well.
Yeah, so before we get into this, we just want to say that as we're talking about these different dosages, this is our experience and our opinion, and it's just that. So this is the way that we like to work with it. This is the way that we've found through trial and error that fits best for us. So keep in mind that just like with everything, there's no one-size-fits-all solution. So it's not like everyone should be microdosing or everyone should be taking the heroic dose, or that everyone should be talking about, or everyone should be taking what we're talking about today in the minimum effective dose, this middle way. We're really just trying to call attention to a part of the spectrum that really doesn't get that much attention. So
and our perspective is from our work is we use medicine for the purpose of healing. So we work with psychedelics and we work with people who are wanting to heal with psychedelics. And so that informs a lot of the ways that we think about this. And we're also people who work in retreat and we work in ceremony. And so just keep that in mind as you're listening to how we talk about this. Like John said, there's no judgment around either end of the spectrum or anything in between. We're just really interested in this. It's cool to learn about it and to talk about it. And we hope that we can provide some good educational information in case you're kind of wondering, like, how do I even know what to take? We're going to talk about that toward the end of the podcast. Like, how do you know what is the right dosage for you? And you might kind of decide some of that while listening to this today. So let's talk about microdosing.
Yeah, so like we were saying before, microdosing is taking a very, very small amount of a medicine. For example, and it's person dependent, of course, but for example, with like LSD, a kind of a standard dose is about 100 micrograms, and people start their microdosing regimen at 10% of that. So they start with 10 micrograms. And the goal is to adjust that to a place where it's imperceivable. So they can go about their day, they can drive, they can have conversations, they can go to work, whatever it is that they're normally doing, all things can be carried out just as they normally would without feeling any noticeable effects. But of course the medicine is in their system. And this is normally done on a schedule of like 3 times a week or every 3rd day or something like that. So to give your receptors and your body a chance to absorb the medicine and then kind of readjust to baseline before receiving another small dose.
So microdosing has been getting a lot of attention lately for being a good entry into working with psychedelics. So a lot of people are kind of like interested in the health benefits of working with psychedelics, but they're afraid of the experience, or they are, well, I mean, I think that's one of the real main reasons of not wanting to have the bigger sort of mystical experience around it is like, it's kind of scary. It's, you're going into an unknown and it can be scary. And so microdosing has been coming up as like an entryway for it's a gateway. It's the gateway to macrodosing. So microdosing is really cool. For the reason I think it's really cool is because, so they've been doing these studies recently about microdosing and comparing it to the placebo effect. So if you hear the words placebo effect, and it actually has a kind of a bad context. Placebo effect is meaning this has the same effect as if you were taking nothing. So in like a medical context, when they're testing things, they're like, well, this is the placebo effect, so it means the medicine isn't effective or something whenever it has the same effect as the placebo. But the way that we look at the placebo effect is like the placebo effect is magic, and it's basically your mind and your intention and you decide that you're doing this thing and it's giving you this benefit, even when the chemical.
Yeah, you're. Go ahead.
Sorry. It's okay. The chemical, like the medicine, is in such a small amount that it's not scientifically, it's not doing anything. And that was kind of a study that came out recently about it. We can link to that in the show notes. I'll make sure and put it in.
Yeah, it's I mean, the placebo effect is really cool because it's like you're taking this sugar pill or whatever it is that is inert. It has no like biochemical reaction in your body that should produce any sort of results that they're claiming it will.
Right.
But by the power of intention and purpose and like endowing that sugar pill with your mind magic, you're making it do those things. You're agreeing that your body can do those things. So whether
that's awesome. That's so cool.
So if the microdose, like this study is saying, is like actually it's much more placebo, it's like that's pretty cool information. Like if your mind is doing that to something inert, you could do that every morning with your glass of water. Mm-hmm. You could do that with your coffee. You could do that with the food you eat by saying prayers over it. You can do it with anything just by saying to yourself and really believing like this is going to work. So, I mean, that begs the question with microdosing, right? And I don't know if there's really a definitive way to prove this, as it's going to be different in the placebo effect, or our magic is working in everything. But the question is like, is the medicine at this dose effective enough to actually do something, or is it really just our intention around taking it that's really having the positive effect? And at least from where I'm sitting, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So it's like if we believe something's working and we're taking it and we have a genuine belief in it and we're behind it 100% and we continue to do it and we're getting results that we want over it, then it's like, who cares what the study says, and who cares how it affects someone else, or who cares about any of that? It's like, it's working for me. And that's really, at the end of the day, it's like, we don't care. Well, science has us like wrapped up in this like, well, it must be an objectively proved thing that is like, it's just universal across the board for every person, that it always does this. And really, who cares? Because if it subjectively works for me, then that's really all that matters in my own personal life, right?
Right. Well, and I think, so with plant medicine, there's a spirit connected. There's a spirit in the medicine. Yes, it's the organic matter, but these plants have spirits, and when you get to have a relationship with them, you know them. You're like, it's my grandmother. It's the mushrooms, the children, the sainted children. You can feel the spirit, and that is in, as one of our shaman friends says, everything you need is in a single drop. And it's what you do with it. And I really, really believe that comes through in microdosing. It's like, I think that the reason the placebo is so powerful is because the spirits of these medicines, it's not about the science or the molecule that like does the brain things. It's the spirit of the medicine that's coming in and like shifting your energetic field to allow you to heal. And it's working. Like whatever the methods are, microdosing is working for people because they believe that it's working and they want it to work. And I also think it's awesome because it's a gateway to doing more medicine in a bigger, like more profound experience. And because I think if people have a good experience microdosing, they're much more likely to, I don't have any statistics about this at the moment, but this is just my like feeling about it, is that if somebody, it's always somebody's mom that's asking me about them. Somebody's asking me like, oh, my mom really wants to microdose. Like, do you have any advice? And, you know, we're more macrodosing people. We're like, yeah, but like good, like give the mushrooms to your mom. If your mom wants the mushrooms, let her have them in any quantity and see what happens. And then, you know, she does that for a while. She might be like willing to sit down and have a ceremony. And just being open to, okay, well, the science says one thing, but what we're seeing in the community is that people are really getting a lot out of this. And I feel like any amount of plant medicine that people are ingesting is like improving the consciousness for everyone. So even if it's, you know, little like microscopic amounts, I think it's a really powerful message that it's also becoming accepted to do, which is a big deal. The more that we have acceptance around entheogens and plant medicines, the more it will spread and the more people will take them and the more, you know, our consciousness will be able to awaken itself. So I really have nothing, you know, we have nothing like negative to say about microdosing. It's a really cool, you know, phenomenon in the community, and I think it's important.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said about, well, obviously, like the spirits of the plants or the spirit of the medicine really applies to sacred earth medicines grown from the earth. The mushrooms, the ayahuasca, the San Pedro,
I took a microdose of peyote one time, and let me tell you, I definitely had a very
you felt it.
Yeah, that's true.
As a small dose.
Well, it was sold to me as this. Oh, you won't feel anything. It's just a little, you know. And I was like,
instead,
right? I was like writing on the blog. It was pretty cool.
So I like what you were saying about the spirit of the plant, right? And that being present. So from my own personal experience with, you know, trying out microdosing and seeing how it worked for me, I found that, you know, it is a relationship with this spirit. So I like this analogy of like, okay, if we have a neighbor across the street and we just wave at this neighbor all the time, and that's the basis of our relationship, right? That's kind of like microdosing. You're having this wave across the street. It's not really, you're not going deep, but you're friendly and you're getting to know them. It's not like that wave is meaningless, right? You're waving, you're being friendly, and there's a connection there for sure. However, when you invite that neighbor over for dinner and y'all sit down, maybe you have like a real deep conversation till like y'all are up to like 3 a.m. talking about like your struggles in life and your traumas and like your solutions for them, and y'all are crying and laughing and you hug it out and you end up like, you know, really falling in love with this person as a friend, and you guys part ways, and then you see them next week and you have that wave. That wave has a lot more weight and meaning and depth behind it. So from my own personal experience, I really like the microdose as a way to keep my relationship present with the spirit of the plant, but to it's not enough to wave to build that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
To build that relationship, I had to have a microdose.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I have the macrodose, sorry. Yeah, when I have the macrodose,
mm-hmm.
and then when I have the microdose, the wave across the street, it really has a lot more depth to it. So
that's something important to think about. If you're thinking about microdosing, it has benefits. It can improve things like mood, sleep. People are reporting all kinds of stuff. Like, you can look it up. It's being touted as something that's really helping people with, things like depression and anxiety and all these things. And it's not going to give you the same result as taking a visionary dose or a dose where you have a mystical journey into another realm. It's just not. And that's a fact. It's because it's just not as strong. Like John said, it's like you haven't had that night with your neighbor where you guys are like, bonding and you're going deep. And the thing about it is, like, for some people, they're not ready to have that experience, or they're not sure they want it, or they're not sure it's necessary. And these are all good reasons to start with microdosing. Like, if you want to dip your toes into the kiddie pool, that is the place to do it. And it can have really profound benefits. But expecting that a microdosing regimen is going to get you to the same place where as going on a retreat necessarily, or, taking ayahuasca, it's that expectation will probably disappoint you.
Yeah, it also has, like, as I've tried it before, it felt very similar to something like taking an antidepressant, mm-hmm. where, and that, again, that's just for me, but where the purpose for me sitting with the plants has really evolved into, like, I want to radically change my perspective. Mm-hmm. I really want to, like, go a couple levels deeper than I can in my normal consciousness and find out, like, what...
Or 10 levels deeper.
Yeah, like, what is the root of this issue that I'm facing right now? Or, like, where am I being inauthentic, and how can I release that belief, that thought pattern, that emotional attachment, that vibration? How can I really change that and consciously put in something that I want that's more healthy, more authentic, more life-affirming for me? Mm-hmm. And microdosing didn't do that for me. What it ended up doing was kind of like put rose-colored glasses on everything. Like, I didn't have to change anything, but I kind of felt like in a better mood a little bit. And after a couple months of doing that, it's like, okay, well, now I've adjusted to the rose-colored lens, and it looks normal, and I'm back in the same boat where, okay, I was still feeling like a little depressed, a little anxious, a little, like, worried, a little lost. And I continued to take the microdose, and it didn't really like cheer me up anymore. Mm-hmm. So, okay, then it was good. Like, let's try the macrodose and really get in there and change the perspectives.
That's something to think about too, around, like, the timing. Microdosing is something that you kind of commit to doing for a considerable amount of time. And if you're really struggling and you're really in a place of, like, needing something to change, that's another, 3 months, 6 months, whatever of time that you're kind of trying this thing out, where it might be like 6 more months of you kind of not really shifting that much. So that's something that, I always ask people too, is like, are you like how much suffering are you willing to put up with? Uh-huh. Because this is not going to deliver a boom, like, change. Right. And a lot of us get to a place, if we're looking at plant medicine, we need something to change. Yeah. We need something to change today. Yeah. And the microdose is a symbol of, okay, I'm doing something about this. And like John said, it's like, for a lot of people, it's just not going to be enough. And that's okay. Okay,
so yeah, let's talk about the other end of the spectrum.
Ooh.
The heroic dose.
The heroic dose. What is the heroic dose? Where did that come from?
So that kind of term comes from Terrence McKenna and
Terrence McKay.
Yeah. So he talked about taking, well, for him, mm-hmm. it was 5 dried grams of mushrooms right. in silent darkness. And this
5 dried grams of mushrooms in silent darkness.
Yeah. So that's his, like. And he really talked about having this experience that was so profound that 2 to 3 times a year was like more than enough for him. That's kind of hitting it heavy. He also talked about like, for him, taking kind of a mid-range dose, 2.5, 3 grams. He was in this place where he was feeling anxious and kind of fighting with the experience. So rather than, and his solution to that was, okay, I'm not going to really sit here in this dose range and figure out how to like navigate that better and how to relax. He's like, I'm just going to take more, and I'm going to take so much that I can't fight it anymore. So that was his solution to it. That's not the solution, but that was his solution.
That's a solution.
Right, and that's how, well, that's where that term heroic dose comes from.
Okay.
So having a huge experience that's, for him, again, he was talking about completely entering a different realm with, you know, a completely new visual, auditory landscape that he could completely interact with entities
he was like
in there.
immersed in a different world.
Right.
Okay.
So that's his thing. He also, okay, and then another way you hear this like heroic dose or this big dose is like an ego dissolving dose where there ceases to be any you, you're merged with everything, there's absolutely no boundaries with anything, and you are,
have, for all intents and purposes, died.
Yes.
Not physically died, but your connection to your like personality and your ego, your spirit, has been severed.
And I would like to say and point out that old Terrence McKenna did not advocate for this. So I was actually listening to him the other day, and he was talking about how that's not the goal with this. You want to be present. You want to be there. You want to be able to interact and receive. So
well, and a heroic dose doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to have an ego death. These are not the same thing.
Right. But these are two versions.
You would have to take a heroic dose. You would have to take a heroic dose to have an ego death, but you're not guaranteed to have one.
Right.
Even at like any high dose. Like ego death is never a guarantee based on like, I mean, for some people they'll tell you, well, if you take this much, you will have an ego death. It could be likely that you would, but I don't think there's a guarantee.
No, each person's very different.
Well, and a lot of it too, like at least in my experience, at more overwhelming doses, I have always had a choice of whether or not I wanted to. So I have never taken so much that I was like forced to lose my ego or have, you know, an experience that I wasn't ready to have. But that's kind of a different little nuance about this.
So, okay, so there's these two kind of experiences. As we're talking about this like higher dose range, what are people looking for out of that? Like why are people, right? There's people who are like, I'm looking for the microdose. We kind of talked about why they were search that stuff out. Like why are people searching out this macrodose?
I think it's kind of a similar reason, but it's like generally people who are seeking an ego death experience or feel that they first of all, they feel that they need to have this, that this is the only way. So they've come up to a place where they're like accepting of, I have to have this ego death experience. And okay, so why would someone like get on board with that idea? And I think there's a lot of pressure on men in particular from other men. This, to me, and this is, you know, my experience as a female in the psychedelic industry, I manage a lot of our social media stuff, and I see a lot of mostly men telling other men, you are not really doing this. If you don't have the ego death, if you don't have the heroic dose, if you're not entering the void, there's all this language around it that's used that's like, come on, be a man. Like, you know, it's kind of like a toxic masculinity thing, like where there is a culture in the psychedelic community of take these to be more masculine, to be like, to have the ultimate experience, to jump out of the plane of psychedelics into the void, you know, it's, and I'm 100% sure there are women who are doing this too, but I'm not seeing gangs of chicks, like gangs of women being like, yes, we must, you know, conquer the mystery. Like it just doesn't really, I'm not seeing that coming from women. Women are more like, the earth is your mother and she wants to hold you and she's made this medicine for you and like come and merge with your mother kind of stuff. It's just like a little softer, I guess, even if you're talking about like the galactic understanding of all of it. But so there's this pressure that I think people feel, especially when they're first getting into it, or if they're shifting from a recreational to more purposeful use. So that's one part. And then why do we onboard that idea that like I need to kill my ego?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people can relate to having problems with controlling or having a good relationship with their mind.
Right.
I heard someone talking the other day or something about like, well, we have a good relationship with our body, right? So like my arm's not going to turn around and like start punching me and beat me up. It's because I have a good relationship with it. I know that I am in charge and I control the arm and it does beneficial stuff for me.
Right.
But we don't have the same relationship with the mind.
Right.
So the mind, we don't have this, it's fucking us up sometimes, right? So, a very Western way, it's like, oh, this thing is a problem, like, cut it out, eradicate it, kill it, get rid of it.
Right.
And so I think that's where, like, sometimes, where the idea to, like, well, let's just kill this ego. Or, like, I'm very attached to this who I am or whatever, all these stories I tell myself. I'm attached to the way I think about things. I'm attached to the programming that I came up with. I don't know what it's like to live without any of those things. Like, I would like to transcend that for a little bit and find what and who I am without any of those things.
That really resonates. Like, I hear that a lot. I can definitely relate to that. Even though I'm not necessarily a person who has sought an ego death, I definitely... It's like you want... I mean, part of the reason we want to take these medicines and have these big experiences is to transcend the noise, is to go underneath like all of the chaos and be like, okay, what is this? It's like going inward to find your inner child is for me the big heroic experience.
Yeah.
Like that's what did it for me, and I did not need to lose my ego to get that healing.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about it, is that, well, first off, like that ego death experience is like absolutely terrifying. The ego is dying. It is literally a death of the ego, and it
feels like you're dying. I mean, it feels like
it's scary, it's tough, it's very hard to stay calm and relaxed and go willingly into that experience. And on top of that, like understanding who you are, that's deeper, that's transcending of the thoughts, beliefs, programming, all that stuff, does not require a complete dissolution of everything that you are. A separation from your body, a complete death of the ego. It's completely possible to understand those patterns and to understand which you've created, which were imposed upon you, and which don't belong to you whatsoever, without completely merging with the all. I can really relate to like thinking that experience would be necessary, and kind of not really seeking it out, but at the same time trying to prepare myself for like, okay, if this happens, I need to be ready, because I keep hearing all these people saying that this is the only way that you're going to be able to transcend this stuff, and this is the only way you're going to be able to like really get a handle on it. And then when I got down for my first retreat, there's this guy serving the medicine, and man, he's so cool and he's wise, and you can feel it just listening to one sentence from this guy. You're like, oh, this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. And he's been doing this for 20 years. Yeah. And he's had very big doses.
Very big, many times. And
the first thing he says is, don't lose yourself, family. Do not lose yourself. Be present. Don't go away. Don't merge. Be present. Be conscious. Feel and experience it all and understand it consciously. So that was kind of a paradigm shift for me. And it turns out none of that was necessary to get the results that I wanted.
So that's really important. The ego death, just to like tell you from a perspective of people who have worked with medicine quite a bit and worked with other people and have seen and had ego death and all of this, ego death is not necessary to get the healing that you want. I don't care where you are or who you are or whatever, it is not necessary. Now, does that mean that you shouldn't have it or what? There's nothing wrong with it to have it.
It might not be it is not necessary for every single person.
Okay, that's true.
So for some people, it might be necessary, right?
That's also true.
So this kind of brings us to the middle way. And what I'd like to segue into the middle way by saying is that a big part of the middle way is not being attached to what it looks like, to accepting and surrendering to that the medicine has an infinite wisdom, and that if I need to have an ego death experience, that is going to happen off an average dose. If I need to have a very gentle microdose type experience where I don't feel anything during the ceremony, that too can happen with the same exact dose of the same exact medicine. So part of finding this middle way for me has been accepting to myself that I don't have to go into the ceremony telling myself a story of what I think I need, that I should be open and accepting of whatever comes to me with the faith and trust that it is exactly what I need in that moment, and that it's really like one of our teachers says, is what do I do with that one drop, that one cup, that whatever I take, that what do I do with it that really makes the difference?
So that's really what I was meaning when I was saying like the ego death is not necessary. It's that it might not be necessary and that we don't know. Like every person is individual, unique. Your experience with medicines is going to be unique. And one thing that we always teach and in our course and in our work at our retreats is like, start where you are. Why are you doing this? What are you trying to heal? Why are you working with the medicines? Where are you in your life? It's so hard to know where you're going or what you need to focus on if you don't have an intention. If you don't know where it's like, how do you get directions if you don't know where your starting point is? So like assessing your situation, if you've been suffering from severe depression or PTSD for 15 years, you might be at a point where you need to like take huge action and take a heroic dose. That is something that you might be really suffering and you're at the point of like, this, I have tried everything and I need help. That's a different place than someone who's like, psychedelics seem like they might be fun. Like, I have a great life. I just want to try them. That's not somebody that needs to go in there and blast themselves with 6 cups of ayahuasca,
Hey.
Nope, that's a lot. That was a big hyperbolic exaggeration. Like, please don't take that much. So all of these methods work differently based on where you are. And the middle way, or in the minimum effective dose, is a strategy or a kind of like, system of approach with medicine that's gentle and soft and balanced and that can keep you from taking more than you need and traumatizing yourself. Because if you take too much of something and you're not ready to handle it, it can be traumatizing. It can be dangerous. It's very hard to overdose on psychedelics. It's likely not going to like physically harm you necessarily, but it could harm you in like your psyche.
Yeah, so a couple things around that is that like, okay, one, for this gentle kind of like easing into it, it's like you're having a relationship with something. And
we talked about this in sexual terms before because it's very, remember when we were talking about it, about like going on dates and stuff, and how when you on your first date with someone, you are really not like gonna be like trying to sleep with them.
Yeah, I mean, you're not, I mean, think about it even more crazy. It's like, you wouldn't, the first interaction you had with someone walking across the street from them is immediately have sex. Like, that is not going to happen. That's not a good way. Like, you're going to end up in jail. That's what you're trying to do. You're going to get fucked up.
Like, slow your roll.
Yeah, exactly.
These are serious. Like, take it easy.
Right. So with taking it easy, it's like, okay, you see someone across the street, you're interested in them, you talk to them. maybe you end up on a date sometime. Maybe you end up on another date sometime. Maybe you end up on another date, and now you're dating, and then eventually a really intimate moment can happen.
Mm-hmm.
But to lead with that intimate moment is intense. And to go from passing on the street to that intimate moment takes like time and patience, and it's not going to happen on the first meeting. So really with these medicines, we recommend doing something like a retreat or starting slow and planning a couple experiences so you can ease into it and find, okay, I'm going to start slow, and then next time if I feel like I needed a little bit more, I can take a little bit more. Okay, I still felt like I would like a little bit deeper experience. Let me take a little bit more and figure out where that is. Because if you're like, okay, I'm going to jump, this has to happen today, and it needs to fix all my problems, and I'm going to jump right into the deep end, you might bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, the putting all your eggs in one basket. In any kind of way that you're doing it, like if you're working with a therapist, if you're like, okay, I have only this one time to take it, and I have to get everything. This is the problem with like people promising that ayahuasca can heal you overnight, or that, yes, these are very profound, transformative experiences, and you can have that in one ceremony. And
you shouldn't
expecting that you're going to heal 30 years of trauma in one night is a little, it's like you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So like John said, managing our expectations around it is a really good, important place to start with. How much should I take? What should I do? And putting yourself in a situation with professionals who are, experienced, trained, people that shamans or leaders who work with these medicines and have a strong relationship with them and know generally if they give you this much, like this is what it's going to do. And trusting that and being able to say, okay, this is a person that this is their profession. They're an expert. I'm going to trust what this person tells me, gives me. And, even in that context of a retreat or something, there are cases of people, John is one of these people, who have a very high tolerance to medicine. So some of this stuff may not even apply to you because, okay, so what happens if the middle way?
Well, it does. It still applies, but
right.
But what the middle way is very individual.
Right.
So the dose for the middle way is a completely individual thing. Comparing yourself to someone else is really a recipe for disaster. This is a completely individual experience. And like you were saying, with someone healing 30 years of trauma in one night, like some people that does happen for. And the reason that happens is that's the best way for this individual person to deal with it. The best individual way for me to deal with it may be to deal with that 30 years of trauma spread out over the next 6 years. And that may be the most effective, efficient, and timely way for me personally to do it. So to expect to have someone else's experience is, well, it's pretty crazy, right? We wouldn't really do that in much other things. So why do it in this? It's to understand that and trust that the medicine is giving me exactly what I need in the way that I need it, in the time frame that I need it. And it's the same thing with dose. Like you were just saying, okay, so for example, when we've drunk Sam, I don't know.
When we've imbibed San Pedro.
When we've sat in ceremony with San Pedro, to get at a similar depth with the medicine, I normally drink 3-ish times what you drink.
That's true.
And there's a lot of like, well, I've experienced a lot of like internal and external like pressure or shame or like conflict around that. Like I've felt like, well, what's going on with me that like, is there some energetic block that I need to take more, or is there like there's something that I'm doing that's like not, or maybe I need to change my diet, or like I'm not meditating enough. I'm like going through all these things like, why can't I connect to the medicine the same way she can? Or I've heard from other people like those same kind of things, like, well, you just have some sort of blockage, or you're being stubborn with the medicine or whatever. Like, why don't you slow down? And really it's like something to do with my metabolism, and it really is just the way it is. And so my middle way might look like someone else's heroic
Blasting.
dose.
Yeah.
Right. And that's fine. And the way that I've been able to understand that with, like, I talk about San Pedro because I have a good, long relationship with San Pedro. And the way I was able to understand that relationship was by starting slow, was by feeling kind of underwhelmed at the beginning. And then I heard people saying, and I thought to myself, well, maybe I have some energetic blockage of the diet or whatever. So I had it again, and I had the same experience. I thought, okay, well, I'll change the diet, I'll change this. Again, and it was the same experience. Okay, next time, you know what? I feel like I could handle double that. So I'm going to double it. And then I felt, okay, well, this is close to there. And then I'll say, oh, okay, well, I'll have a little more next time. And over the course of maybe 6, 7, 8 ceremonies, I finally got to, like, okay, I really am feeling like I'm connecting to this medicine. I really understand. I'm getting what I came here searching for, which is, for me, was shifting my perspective, seeing myself and the world in a new way, and trying to build a harmonious relationship, both internally and externally. And I finally felt connected to the medicine teaching me how to do that. And to replicate that, I tend to take 3 times the amount that you take. And both of us are hitting the middle way, but it looks a lot different to get there.
Yeah, it's such an interesting concept, especially coming from a place of, like, I used to be addicted, so I did not know how to have a minimum effective dose of anything. I had no off switch. I could not discern where I would say, I've had enough. And the medicine...
You find the off switch real quick with ayahuasca.
Yeah, so working with these plants, that was such a gift to come to a place in myself where I know how much I need to have the experience that I want to have, and it's not that much. And, like, I went to a mushroom retreat in November. It was my first time to work with mushrooms in a ceremonial context. Like, I had taken them a lot as, you know, a younger person, like, for fun or whatever, even though they were always like, we're going to pull you into this psychedelic realm. You don't know what we're doing, but we're doing it. I love the mushrooms they had the long game plan. But I went to this retreat, and I didn't know this at the time because they don't tell you how much they give you, but I had, like, less than 2 grams on the first ceremony, and it was very strong. And I had a very strong experience. I had got a lot of healing. I shifted. I was, like, you know, crying, and I had a powerful, awesome experience. And then I, you know, was listening to all the other people the next couple of days, and they were like, oh, I'm going to take like a lot more. Like, I didn't feel anything. And I got this little, like, voice in my head. And I remember I called John, and I was like, I don't know. I feel like I should try to take more. And I chose, so I didn't even go up very much. I think I told them I would like a half a step more. And that ceremony kicked my ass because I took too much. I took too much for me, and I should have stayed at the same amount that I was at, because that experience was really powerful and good and, like, not overwhelming in a way that I didn't like. And for me with mushrooms, like, if I take more than 2 grams, it can get really, like John was saying, how Terence McKenna said it, like, I got really lost. And I couldn't find my way back to, like, my center, which is really rare for me. Like, with ayahuasca, I'm like, I know where things are, but this medicine was new to me. And so it was a really good learning experience of, like, you do not need to take more. Like, I don't like the feeling of seeking some kind of extreme peak experience with medicine all the time, because I feel like it does a disservice to the subtle, beautiful experience of having your presence with you while you're doing it. And, like, what was I trying to feel that I didn't already feel? So that was a really reminder for me that the minimum effective dose is always the way that I want to do it, because when I don't do it like that, I tend to not have I have a really hard time, and I learn something really valuable by having a really hard time. Which is, you know, what you need to have. If you have a hard time, that's what you need. But I think that you can often find a way to get that healing experience. Like, you don't necessarily have to suffer to heal, while you're doing it. And that's something really important
Oh.
to acknowledge.
So we like this minimum effective dose because exactly what you're talking about. When we take more, then we're able to navigate, able to receive from, able to really connect to well, right? The experience can feel like, well, I'm just like curling in the fetal position waiting for this to be over. And like, that experience doesn't really deliver much, right?
No.
I mean, not in my experience with it.
I don't like that.
And if you take too little, it's like our teacher says, everything you need from ayahuasca is in one drop. Mm-hmm. So the beauty of taking too little, and I've experienced that far more often than I've experienced taking too much. Mm-hmm. And the beauty of taking too little is that I've set aside time in this ceremony or for this experience to sit with myself and meditate and ask the medicine for help on whatever the specific issue is. I've carved this time away, and I have it no matter what. My phone is away. The TV's not on. There's no music unless someone's singing or whatever. Like, I have a dedicated space to work on what I'm trying to work on. And I can still use that. If I've taken a little bit less than I really wanted to, and I'm not really connecting to the medicine, I still have that time and space to sit with myself. And I'm going to be a little more open because I have met with the medicine, even if I can't really perceive it. And the answers can more easily flow through my heart when I meditate, or my mind can just a little more subtly think of a new solution. And it's like it's not a waste. A lot of people working at the retreat, well, a lot of people who came to the retreat we're working at would say, I didn't feel anything, and it didn't work, and et cetera, et cetera. And when we talked to them, what I heard a lot of the time was, well, I was just sitting, waiting around to feel it the whole time, wondering, was that it? Was that it? Was that it? And then getting angry, well, I'm not feeling it, and I'm not feeling it. It's like, okay, well, you had this time and space to think about whatever the issue was, or to meditate on whatever the issue was, or to like pray about whatever the issue was. And instead of taking that time and space to do that, you sat there complaining about the experience that you were having. And you could have been using that time to engage with the healing you wanted, even though it wasn't in the way that you wanted it. So it's like that a little bit less can still give us what we need.
I think when you have those like lighter experiences, it teaches you how to participate in your healing, because so many times people expect this medicine to come and do a thing to them. And what really happens is you meet the medicine and you come together, and you can really start to do that on like not really very much. Like you can feel it and you come and you're like, you're here. I'm so grateful that you're here. Like, let's have a conversation. And asking the medicine when you're with it, how much should I take? Should I take more? You'll know the answer. And sometimes you'll take more, especially like with ayahuasca. So with ayahuasca, you can take another dose and it will exponentially like increase. So the more ayahuasca you take, the more intense it is. And you can drink it once, and then some time can pass, and you can drink more. You can do that a few times if you want. And you could have a journey and then kind of come back down to earth, and it'd be one way, and then you take another cup and you might have a whole different experience. And asking the medicine itself, like, do I need more? Is there something that I'm not getting? If you feel in your, intuitive self that you're not getting what you need, that's a good time to take more. And you can ask the person serving the medicine, like, I just want a little bit. You don't have to double your, like, if you're adding more, double is not necessarily the answer. It's like, take a little bit. Like with ayahuasca, at least for me, which I'm pretty sensitive, like, if I drank as much ayahuasca as John drinks, I would have very serious problems, like doing anything, walking, talking. Would not be able to. So there's a retreat. You have a certain amount of time, right? So how do you know how it goes? Like we said, it's like managing your expectations, understanding that it may take you a couple ceremonies to like get your kind of boots on around it, and it may be something that you get to a certain place with it in one retreat or one journey or one evening, And that's why we integrate. We take everything that happened, and this may be like unfolding for you over months and weeks after your experience, and then you come back to it again. And that's sort of where when I first started working with psychedelics, I didn't think I was going to keep working with them. I didn't know that they were going to be so powerful for me. Like, this medicine makes sense for me. This way of dealing with myself and understanding myself and understanding my place in this world and showing up in this world, in this life, in this body. This is why I'm here. I'm not here to blast off out there. That is always there. That's there when we are not here. We're only here right now in these physical bodies for a really short amount of time. And what the medicine taught me was, like, you chose to come into this life to heal this addiction, to heal this ancestral trauma, to heal this insecurity about your body, to heal all of this stuff in your own family, in your own life. Like, that's where you're supposed to show up. It's not, okay, what is the meaning of life? What, you know what it is. The meaning of life is like, this is it. It's in every moment. It's in everything that we do. And it's in all the experiences that we have that we just blow off because they're not, like, big enough, or, so much of what the medicine teaches us is, like, gratitude for the moment that we have and to be present. And we're not present. We're on our phones. We're on our computers. We're doing 6 things at once. We're not paying attention. And like John said, sitting in silence with yourself, being present with yourself, is really hard because we're not used to doing it. But it's really powerful. It's
good medicine. Yeah. It's good medicine without having any plants, without having any psychedelics. It's good medicine on its own. So, yeah, what I'm really reminding myself and sharing with you all is that when I have that experience, to take good advantage of it and to sit with myself and use the medicine of sitting quietly with myself with no distractions, because really that's all the medicine does anyways, is facilitate this meeting between us and ourselves and no other distractions. And when our minds are quiet and we're sitting with nothing else but ourselves, the answer comes through anyways. Mm-hmm. So the medicine facilitates this thing that's really available to us all the time. So if you're having an experience that's not exactly what you were hoping for, like, that's okay. The answer really is there anyways. And again, I'm reminding myself because I can get hung up on that. So
yeah, I think our sort of main idea of all of this around find the middle way for you. Find what that looks like for you, and it doesn't matter what it looks like for someone else. If you have to take 2 heroic doses to get to a baseline level that is you're having an experience that you feel good about, that's okay. If you take half as much as other people, that's okay. If you love microdosing, that's okay. Like, wherever you find yourself on the spectrum, find a way that's gentle and soft and balanced for you. Mm-hmm. And once you feel, like, comfortable in that, then you can feel more confident to, like, push the boundaries a little bit and see what works for you. But just giving yourself the permission to have the experience you have and to be open to it feeling how it feels, and, like, letting it look a different way than what you think is a really powerful tool. So I would say, like, find your middle way.
Well said.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us for today's podcast.
Yeah.
We wanted to share with you the story of how we came to do these retreats in Olón, Ecuador.
Yes. Okay, so Olón is a quaint little, like, village. It's a beachside, oceany. It's a little village on the coast of Ecuador at the beach. And it's right down from Ayampe. It's like the next town over from Ayampe. And John and I spent 6 weeks in Ayampe last year.
Yeah.
We worked at this retreat center for a long time. That's where we met. And then things got kind of dicey there. And we realized, like, this isn't a good fit for us anymore and we need to leave. And we were really sad because it was just, like, really hard to leave there.
And we were living in the neighboring town, and it was like, I'm especially not a city person, and we were in a city, and we were kind of feeling like trapped by the concrete jungle, and we were like, we got to get some time out of here. We were kind of like,
we had plane tickets.
Yeah, we were in limbo in Ecuador, waiting from all the way from like October till March for these plane tickets we had.
Yeah,
we didn't want to waste
6
the
months.
plane tickets. So around, what was it, December or something like that?
Yeah,
January?
We went there on the day before my birthday.
That's right, yeah. So
January 17th of 2020.
we were like, let's go to the beach and let's like ride the rest of this thing out at the beach. And
we love the beach.
oh my God, y'all, it is so beautiful there. We stayed in this house with this giant acacia tree where all these like hummingbirds and like tanagers came in. They were hanging out.
We had an iguana.
Yeah.
We named him Steve, and he would like plop down from the tree onto the roof, just like thud.
And
cool.
There's like pelicans everywhere. The sunsets at the beach are just absolutely gorgeous. The water's perfect.
Flowers
There's crabs
everywhere.
and like
So pretty.
hibiscus everywhere. We love this place. So, and the magic of the ocean holding us was really like helping us connect to, okay, we've left this retreat center. Like, what do we want to do?
Right.
And we had some ceremonies with this beautiful San Pedro.
This guy was like blue.
thick.
He was a big boy.
He
We
was-
got him in the mountains, and we took him with us to the ocean.
Great medicine.
Yeah, it was the most amazing San Pedro that we had like the whole year and a half that we were there.
And we had 2 ceremonies with it.
Uh-huh.
So the first one, we really sat around praying and talking and connecting to our purpose. And we came up with that. We wanted to help people with their integration to make sure that no one fell through the cracks with their plant medicine experience, that everyone had all the tools, resources, and support available to them that they needed to really make lasting, significant transformation in their life. And the other part of that is like, we wanted this to be a holistic thing. So we wanted to offer preparation, we wanted to offer the retreat itself, and we wanted to do the integration afterwards.
Yeah.
So we came to this realization about the dream. And then we had the second ceremony.
So the second ceremony, our intention was to plant the seeds for our dream. And our dream being like doing the work of working in the psychedelic space and as Mystical Heart Collective together as a partnership and everything that entailed. And we wanted to come back to Ecuador and have retreats and be with the medicines. However, the medicines wanted to make that happen with us.
Right.
And so we had this beautiful ceremony with San Pedro together, and then at sunset we went to the beach. And if you've ever been in the way that we do our San Pedro ceremonies with our medicine family is at the end of the ceremony, it's a 4 tobacco ceremony. There's a opening tobacco, and then the second tobacco is for the father water. We pray for the rain and the masculine, the divine masculine. And then the third tobacco is the power tobacco, where like the healing work happens. And then the fourth tobacco is the tobacco for the mothers and the divine feminine and the receiving water and the ocean. And there's always a beautiful like line of food that we do. So whenever John and I do the ceremony, even if it's just the two of us, we do the line of food, and it's corn, which is the seeds, which are the ancestors, the 7 generations that were before us. And then we have the meat, which is the 7 generations that are here now. And then the fruits, which is the seeds. Well, it comes water is first, but the seeds, the water, and the flesh are the fruit, the 7 generations to come. And so we had this prayer, and we took it all to the beach, and we did this at sunset. And it was a holiday weekend, and so there were like tons of people, and there were hundreds of pelicans. Like
she's not exaggerating.
Like hundreds
and
of
hundreds
them.
and hundreds.
Like we had seen, every day there's like 20 or 30 of them. This day, it looks like there was a feeding frenzy, and I love these birds. They're so beautiful and majestic, and they were just like flipping out, and it felt like, granted we were with the San Pedro, it was very strong, but it really felt like the universe was conspiring with us to have this ceremony. And so we planted some seeds in the ground in the little jungle next to the ocean with our prayers for doing this work. And then the next day we left. I think the next couple of days we left Ecuador, and we came back to a pandemic and a lockdown, and like everything changed, and
the dream was kind of like, okay, well, the dream has been planted, the seeds are in there, but it's not going to go the way we thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
So we're waiting. It's been, 6-9 months later. And I actually went down to Ecuador to stay with some of our medicine family and help out and be in some ceremonies. And, well, we had looked at, we were starting to look at places to rent for this retreat.
So when I went to the mushroom retreat, it was at the beach in Mexico, and the mushrooms told me, Ayampe, you need to look in Ayampe. And I got this message like from the ocean while I was with the mushrooms, and I told John, I was like, Ayampe.
Yeah, so we were sold on it.
Yeah.
So we're looking at places and trying to figure it out, and then it dawned on us, we had a list of a couple places, and we kind of had a first choice, and then it dawned on us like, oh my god, we need a sweat lodge. Like, duh.
We need a Maloka.
We need a Maloka. Like, how are we going to do this just at some
like,
Airbnb?
People don't just have Malokas on the beach.
So we started Googling, and we found a place that was for rent that has a sweat lodge and a Maloka. So you were in the States, you sent them an email, and we're like, hey, we're looking to rent to do a retreat.
Yeah.
Y'all, I shit you not. The very next morning I wake up, and we were, I was with our medicine family at their home, and they were hosting a ceremony. The person who owned the place that we just sent the email, who we had never met, pulls up to where I'm at and is like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, oh, we literally just sent you an email. It was like such a synchronicity.
It was really cool. So we kind of like, from that point, we really knew that this was a good place, and like, this is it's a beautiful place. We've had a really good experience, like getting everything together, and everything is sort of aligned, and we wanted to share this story about this because this is what happens when you start to believe that the universe is conspiring in your favor. Like this is always what happens. And people will tell you this, and you're kind of like, it feels hard when you're trying to build something or trying to create something from nothing, especially in the middle of a pandemic, and like everything that everyone's been through the last year and a half has been really intense. And for us to be able to do this now in this place that we really love and have a really strong connection with feels so good. And we're so excited about it, and we are so grateful to Ecuador and like the family that we have there that works with these medicines, because the experience there is really like nothing else. It's amazing.
The magic of this beach, the magic of these medicines, the magic of the way this family holds ceremony, and the way they taught us to hold our ceremonies when we have them on our own, and the way that this magic really manifests and comes to life is like, this retreat is an expression of that. And if you're looking for that in your life, you want to find some magic, I can tell you this is the place that we found it.
Yeah, and this is our dream retreat. We've created it in a way that has everything that we know to make the healing experience as beautiful and comfortable and loving and compassionate and exciting and fun. And the ocean is there, and like, it's just, we can't wait. And so come get a slice of magic. Yeah. And we're gonna talk about little different parts of the retreat at the end of our podcasts going forward as we get closer to having our first one. So if you have any questions, please visit our website, mysticalheartcollective.com/retreats. All the information is there. You can make a booking there. And if you have any questions at all, you can always email us at hello@mysticalheartcollective.com. Please, if you know somebody that is looking for a retreat or likes plant medicine, please send them our podcast, share our Facebook, and share our stuff. We are really trying to get the word out about this. Our biggest problem is that nobody knows who we are. So if you could tell your friends and family about how they can have a magical experience on the beach, we would love to have you or them there.
Oh, we look forward to hearing from you soon, y'all. Peace.